been a little bit since my last Blu-ray haul, so let's dive into what I've picked up over the last several months. We got, a handful of Blu-rays in there, one DVD, and a bunch of books related to May franchises. First up on the list, the one that's actually up on the TV, I rolled the dice on this one. So this is a new release, Blu-ray release of Masters of the Universe from Umbrella, with a bunch of new special features, in particular one where they interviewed Albert Payan, the director that passed away a couple years back, that was going to do a sequel to Masters of the Universe. It fell through, and then that turned into Cyborg, the Van Damme film. So they had all these special features on it, so I've always been a fan of this movie, so I decided to pick it up. And I like kind of these, smaller, more boutique Blu-rays that have interesting special features where you get they're not puff pieces from the studio, they're actual honest interviews with actors, creators, all of that fun stuff. So I pre-ordered this one months and months ago, and they started sending emails like 6 weeks, a month ago saying, hey, just so you know, this is actually coded for Britain, not the United States. If you're in the United States, you might not want to keep this because it might not play in your players. I was like, I'm going to roll the dice. I've had pretty good luck with ordering European 4Ks, Blu-rays, and them actually working on my system. And as you can see, it is playing right now just fine. So I haven't clicked through everything to see if maybe certain features don't work. But if you're into Masters of the Universe and you have a PlayStation 4, it does appear that the Umbrella release will play on your system. Next up, not as exciting of one, but the 4K for Dawn of the Dead. Obviously, we got a new Zack Snyder film a couple months back in Rebel Moon, a movie not nearly as good as his first film, Dawn of the Dead. And so I thought, might as well go ahead and get the 4K for his first film. I know it's pretty nice little release. We're 3 different discs, an enormous number of special features, 2 different cuts of the movie, Blu-ray, and the 4K. So, if you like Dawn of the Dead, like I do, it's a good one to pick up. Then we had a David Leitch film come out last month, so I picked up the last of his 2 movies that I did not own on disc, at least his best. Sometimes I own things I don't even realize it, but apparently didn't have Atomic Blonde or Bullet Train, so picked those ones up. Atomic Blonde was a funny one because I saw it at an early press screening. Even though I wasn't on press, I just went on waited in line to get in because it was pretty early in the history of my channel. And I won a bunch of Atomic Blonde stuff. So I still own an Atomic Blonde shirt, and the sunglasses that I have in my car and that I've had for 6-7 years now are Atomic Blonde sunglasses, and I call them my Atomic Blondes. And so just like the ones that, there we go. Just like the ones that she's wearing on there. And then Bullet Train, fun movie from a couple years back. Switch the order on these just a little bit. All right, next one up. The Crow turns 30 this year. Actually turned 30 last month. And they did a re-release in theaters. I actually went to go see it with my buddy Andy. I'd never seen it on the big screen. I've always respected it. I've always enjoyed it, but I've never been full-blown a fan of The Crow. The way that, people that are into The Crow are really into The Crow. I've never been one of those people. But I've always felt like I should be. I should like it more than I do. So doing a bit with the new one coming out soon, doing kind of a deep dive. I've actually watched all of the Bad Crow sequels over the last couple months and ordered the 4K. And so this was a new release, first time on 4K, I believe. And once again, bunch of special features, retrospectives, things like that. Pre-ordered it and came in the mail. I was like, what is this again? Oh yeah, that's right, The Crow turns 30. And I now own it on 4K. Following right along that path, the Brandon Lee movie that I've always been very fond of is Rapid Fire. A lot of people talk about Showdown in Little Tokyo, the one that he did with Dolph Lundgren as Tia Carrera in it. And so naturally, because he's teamed up with another action star of that genre of that time, that's the one that gets a little bit more attention than Rapid Fire. I always enjoyed Rapid Fire more as a film. And so because I was on this Crow kick, watching The Crow, buying The Crow, watching all these YouTube videos about The Crow and Brandon Lee, reminded me how much I liked Rapid Fire. So I ordered this one and received it, and turned out it's not actually the English release of the movie. Now, it has the English track on it, but it defaults to Spanish. I believe. A slight chance it's Portuguese. But it defaults to that. And so the movie started, I was like, and they're in a foreign country in the opening scene of the movie, and I was like, I don't remember. What is going on? And I realized, oh, and all the menus and stuff are not in English, and the legal stuff at the beginning, not English, not United States laws, and so I had to click through all the buttons to be able to watch through it. And, yeah, it's a fun little 90s martial arts action flick. More flaws than I remembered it having, or perhaps that's, when you watch a movie as a high schooler in the 90s, you're like, oh, cool, he's kicking people in the face. Wait a minute, he pulled those moves from Jackie Chan's Police Story. Wait a minute, filmmakers and actors are inspired by other actors, and I'm piecing it together? Wow, movie making's incredible. I understand things. So Rapid Fire is one of those movies where I felt like I was ahead of the curve and knew stuff other people didn't know, though other people did know it. I just knew stuff my high school peers didn't know. However, watching it now as a 42-year-old film critic, there are some issues with the plot and characterizations at the same time. But still, fun time. Fun one to re-explore. And then, this is actually first time watch for me. Young Frankenstein. I'd never seen the full movie before. And we did a 31 on 31 comedies. So, checked it out for the very first time. And it's always tricky when you watch kind of like a comedy classic where so many of the jokes are part of the popular culture and they've been repeated in other movies, and you kind of know what it's doing before you watch it. And so you never really, like, I'm watching it like, I get it, so influential, but I can't watch it and be like, I get it. I didn't have that wow moment because I just had experienced so much of the movie in other places beforehand. So, yeah, it was, I don't know. That's the tricky thing with when you don't grow up with a classic, that you never get to experience it truly as the classic. Now we have a DVD of a documentary called Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Interesting backstory on this one. So this was I don't know what AMC, some cable network did a 30-year retrospective documentary for the 30th anniversary of the release of the original Planet of the Apes. And it came out right when my mom was in the hospital. When I was the first week of my junior year in high school, my mom was in a horrible car accident and spent 2 months in the hospital. And then months and months and months in outpatient therapy. It was just really kind of defining event of my high school years. And you're in the hospital, there's only so much you can do there. Turn the TV on. And this documentary was playing on loop. So this defining event from my formative high school years has this very strange connection to a Planet of the Apes documentary that, I hadn't seen it again, in 30 years or whatever, or not 30, it hasn't been 30 years since then. It's been 25 years since then. And so, rewatching it was kind of interesting, like how much of it I remembered, how much of it I didn't. But like this right here was kind of my actual introduction to Planet of the Apes. Like I'd seen things, familiar with things, but watching the behind the scenes, I watched this before I'd seen most of the original, or before I'd seen the original movies, really. And so it's kind of the most backwards way to introduce it, and tied to like the most random of like traumatizing events in my life. Actually, I had one more important one that I missed. The Last Kum. I missed it because I had it downstairs because I watched it, and I had the other ones in my office. Anyway, this is a martial arts film that came out this year that essentially it's designed to be a tribute to all the late 80s, early 90s martial arts films that I grew up watching, renting from Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, and then it stars even a bunch of people in those movies. Cynthia Rothrock, Billy Blanks, star of No Retreat, No Surrender, a bunch of guys that showed up in action movies from that time period. But the reason it really got on my radar is that a YouTuber named Viking Samurai, I've been watching his stuff for about 4 years now, buddies with him,
And he's in it. Like, he ended up in the movie doing like the Jean-Claude Van Damme split kick and everything like that. So with all that, I knew I wanted to pick it up. And actually, he's actually on the back of it right there doing the Van Damme split kick, like the iconic shot from the movie. And it's him, one of my YouTube friends on here. And the actual release for it's a steelbook and everything. So it looks really, really cool. The movie itself, like, it's very much a niche film. It's designed for people like me that grew up walking the aisles of Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, or Family Video, whatever you went to, watching all those direct-to-video action movies. It's filled with all these references. It's very low budget. They literally funded it with Kickstarter, so there's a lot of limitations that kind of like went along with that. But it's very specifically a love letter for fans of those movies that, like, if you think of Billy Blanks, and first off, you know who he is. Second off, you don't think of him as the Taibo guy, but the martial arts guy from action movies in the 90s, then the movie might be for you. You just have to go and know that you're watching a film with limited resources and all the issues that kind of come along with that.
All right, then from there, a couple more things to just kind of discuss on here. Tying into why I bought a Planet of the Apes documentary, we got a new Planet of the Apes movie. So I did a big, gigantic deep dive into the series, and so reading this book right here, which is kind of a history of the whole franchise, kind of the behind the scenes and everything like that. So kind of touching on similar categories. Each of them, had their own plus and minuses and how they did it. And a book is, generally speaking, going to be able to be more detailed than a 2-hour documentary about 5 different movies and 2 different TV shows. And also the book covers all the way through to the modern film. So that was useful. And then this one was one, this guy right here, J.W. Rinsler. Where am I? There we go. I love his books. He's got a bunch of these about movies that are in my top 10, top 20 favorite films of all time. He's done a bunch of these coffee table behind the scenes books where he did the original Star Wars trilogy. That's where I kind of discovered them, was like diving into them. And just what he does is he, instead of basing it on new interviews, he bases it on just the original interviews, original everything. So no changes with history, like George Lucas historically, infamously, mythologizes himself and the creation of Star Wars. And he simplifies some things, amplifies things. Like, I wrote this one script, it was too big to make into one movie, so then I said that I'd make the first act as the first movie, and then the other 2 movies were, obviously the follow-up. That's not really true. Like, he said that in the final VHS release of the original trilogy. That's not really true. And so he kind of walks you through the actual original scripts and everything. And so it's really cool. Anyway, we're on Planet of the Apes. And he's done Aliens, Indiana Jones, a bunch of just like my favorites. And he had one for the original. I don't know. They're kind of. There we go. Cinematography right there. The original Planet of the Apes. So another one that just kind of goes into so many details on the creation of it. That gets interesting because, the creator of Twilight Zone was very involved in early phases. And there's all this iterating and everything like that. Interesting stuff. Then I picked up a couple Mad Max books. This one I haven't actually read any of it yet, but it just seems so interesting. Mad Max and Philosophy. It's a series of like people's dissertations on philosophy dissertations using Mad Max. And so diving into different movies, different characters, different beats, and the philosophical implications. What is the philosophy of this? What do we call this? So, interesting stuff. Not one that I have a specific overt use for. So I haven't had time to actually dive into it. And now, the movies come out and we've passed. But one that I did, huge dive into, massive fan of this book. Love this book right here, Blood, Sweat, and Chrome. It is a deep dive into, the whole book is about the creation of Fury Road. And there's this much of it is on the original trilogy and George Miller, and then the rest of it is just on the long development of Fury Road, the very weird filming of it, and everything, like crime, all this insane stuff that happened, the insane editing process, all of it. Super interesting, very insightful into how movies actually get made, and the weird studio politics, the insanity that is George Miller, all of that fun stuff. So if you like movie making or if you like Mad Max, this is a must read. Anyway, there you have it. That's what I've picked up recently. I'll link to some of those things down below where I picked them up and all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching. talking movies and TV and Blu-rays and DVDs and books.